once a woman had a dream. She was in the presence of God, and a great voice asked, "Who are you?" After a moment's hesitation, the woman showed her passport and said, "This is me. Here is my picture. Here is my signature." The voice said, "I didn't ask for an image of yours. I asked, who are you?" She was a little disoriented at the beginning, but then she said, "Oh yes, I am Mary." The voice said, "I didn't ask you what's your name. I asked, who are you?" "I am a hairdresser." "I didn't ask you what is your job. I asked you, who are you?" The woman remained speechless for a while, and then what she believed to be the right answer popped up in her mind, and she said, "I am a Christian." And the voice became a little more severe still. "I didn't ask you your religion. I asked you, who are you?" At that point, she was really puzzled and perplexed. And so she played her last card and said, "I've always helping poor people and done charity work." And at that point, the Lord looked down in compassion upon her, and for the last time said, "I didn't ask what you have done. I asked, who are you?" The poor woman woke up all in a sweaty, and realized that she would have to inquire more deeply into the question, who am I, before meeting God again. So, this story says that it's not so easy to inquire into who I am. And the problem is not only that she didn't know who she was, but also that she believed to be something that was not true. Once Mark Twain said, the biggest danger doesn't come from what we don't know, but rather from what we believe it is true while it isn't. So, in exploring together the question, who am I, it's important to recognize the many layers of an onion, you know, and to put aside, step by step, the masks that cover our true face, in order to recognize what is the core essence of our identity. And if you like to explore with me this question together, I think that it's very important that we use our immediate and experience, our direct and immediate experience. Because in our direct and immediate experience, many things arise. Physical sensations, perceptions, and thoughts. But the thoughts have a strange power that they arise in our experience, but they come very near to our eyes, like spectacles, you know? And we easily begin to see what is through our thoughts. When we see things through spectacles, we can't see the spectacles. We see through the spectacles. And so we forget that all that we are seeing has the conditioning of those spectacles. So it's very important to put them out and to see that they are just one among the many things that appear in our awareness. So what I invite you to do, through many questions that we will ask during this meeting, is to look directly at your experience before your thought begins to describe it. It can do it later on. But in the immediate exploration, it's important to see what is evident in our experience. So when one asks the question, who am I? Very often the first answer that comes up for most people is, I am this body and this mind. And body and mind are names, concepts. So, first of all, if we explore in our immediate experience, what is it that we mean when we say body? What happens? If you just explore body, then put aside the name and see what is it here in the experience that we call body. And I think that you can discover what we usually call physical sensations, pulses, nuances of temperature, vibrations, pulsations that just appear and disappear from moment to moment. That is, let's call them physical sensations. That is all what our experience, direct experience, shows when we say body. And of course, when we say mind, we just see thoughts, memories, images that arise and pass away. So if we say that we are this body and this mind, we discover that we are something much more alive and much more changing than the two words. If you like, now let's do a very simple experiment. If you just for a moment close your eyes and go to the mind and visualize a flower, no matter which one, the easiest that comes up in your mind, a flower. You can see it. It is a mental image. Now, put it aside and visualize an umbrella. It doesn't matter if it is closed or opened, an umbrella. Okay. Now, there were two very different images that we call mind, but very different one from another. One is passing by, the other came and now has disappeared. Now, the you that was observing the first image, the flower, was the same that was observing the umbrella, or they were two totally different you. Is there any difference that you can see between the two observers? No. So we can say that there were two different images, but just one observer, you. That doesn't change. The same we can do, for example, with the body. We can feel for just a moment what are the physical sensations of your left hand. And you can feel this energy that flows and moves there, vibrations, pulsations. And if you just put it aside and explore the physical sensations of your tongue, you can see that there are many differences in those sensations in comparison with the ones of your hand. And again, they change and are different, but the observer is just the same. So, provisionally, we could say that we are both something that is changing, the images that we call mind, the physical sensation that we call the body, and something that doesn't change, the observer of them. We are both. Both partake to our identity somehow. But which is closer to the inner core of our identity? What is changing or what doesn't? For example, also our dresses somehow define our identity. According to our dressing, our clothing, we can be an elegant person or whatever. So our dressing is part that define our identity. And of course our physical aspect, our body also define our identity. Which is closer to our inner identity, our dresses or our body? I think that most of you would say our body. And if I ask why, you would answer, because I can change my dress, and when I put it off, I remain myself, while I cannot change my body. Actually, also the body changes. It's enough to see one picture of ours of 10 years ago to see that also the body changes. But in this answer, if you answered as I guess, you establish a rule for this inquiry into the inner core of our identity. And the rule is that what changes is less relevant than what changes less or doesn't change. And so, if we follow this rule in our inquiry, we can say that our body is changing through time, and from moment to moment, if we look at our body in our immediate experience with the physical sensations flowing very quickly. Our thoughts, our mind is even faster in changing from moment to moment. And so, if we put aside everything that changes, what remains? I remind you that you now are inquiring into your identity and that you are present. So, you are here. So no need to look for something in the future that is not now. So if you are present, there must be here what doesn't change. And what doesn't change, of course, is a very simple thing. The very fact that you are, that you exist, and that you are aware. In this moment, this doesn't change because it's always here. We can call it in one term, being awareness. Huh? And this aware presence is what the mind translates into the sentence, I am. Let's call it, I am consciousness, our aware presence, is prior to everything that appears as experience. Because if, first of all, you are not here, present and aware, nothing appears to you. So, every sensation, every perception, every thought can appear only if, prior to it, you are exist and are aware. You are this aware presence. In our life, so, we can say that what happens can be translated in this simple sentence. I am this. This is what happens usually. I am being my aware presence. And the changing experience that is happening. For example, we say, I am happy, I am sad, I am hungry, I am sad, I am old, I am young, and so on. The old, young, happy, sad is the this of I am this. This part of the experience. The I am is always the same. It is the observer of what happens. And now what happens is very interesting because when a this appears, all our attention gets focused only on the this. And we forget or overlook the I am. This happens because for us it's very important to be happy and not sad, to be healthy and not sick, to be rich and not poor, and so on. And so the this is very important for our mind, and all the attention goes there and overlooks and forgets the I am, that is what opens up the entire horizon of any this that can appear. We forget the I am, that is the unchanging part of experience, and we are hypnotized by the changing part of the experience. And it's very similar to when we read the words that are written on a page. We see the words and we forget the page. But if I ask you, when you read the words, do you see the page or you don't, or don't you? It's difficult to answer because you see the page. If you didn't see the page, you couldn't see the words because the words are not on the page. They are the page. So if your attention is only on the words, nevertheless, you are seeing the page. But you don't notice it. You forget it. And we forget the very I am that is prior and the precondition for any experience to occur. And this is something that promotes the arising of the illusion of a separate I, of a separate ego. There are many things that create this mirage. The first is that we use, for example, the word I in different ways. For example, we sometimes say, I am sick, I am healthy, I am tall, I am short. And the I is referring to the body. When we say, I am sad, I'm happy, I'm intelligent, I'm stupid, the I refers to the mind. And the I always refers to our aware presence. When we say I, we always mean also our aware presence. And so, these are three very different ways of using the word I. When the mind tries to organize a description of who am I, it makes just one package of the three, as if they were the same. But you can see that there is a strong difference, because the body and the mind are the this. Our aware present is the I am. That is the precondition. That is the aware space where any this can appear. So you can't put them in one package. When we have this, do this package, we begin to think that I am this, that is, I as an aware presence am the body and the mind, but what about perceptions? What about sounds, colors, smells? Oh no, that I am not. That is the outer world. And so we say, I am this, my aware presence is body-mind, but I am not that, the external world. What has to say our experience about this? If you are hearing my voice, you can describe it the mind can describe this in two ways. You can call this a sound, meaning something coming to you from outside, an object of the external world, or you can call it hearing, meaning something in you that receives the sound. And since our mind, our language, our thought is using two opposite terms, one external sound, the other internal hearing, reality is cut in two sides, in two halves, the external sound and my hearing. But if you check your immediate experience, while you are hearing my voice, could you see the exact edge, the exact borderline, where the sounds out there finish and the hearing in here is beginning? And this is impossible, because that line is only in our mind, in the description, in the maps that the mind builds up in order to describe reality. The experience is this of a sound. After this, the mind says, I heard a sound. And this is I, the subject, and the sound, the object. But this is a rule of grammar, it's not a rule of the nature. In the nature, things happen. When we say, I eat, I decide, I think, I do, we easily think that there is a separate entity, an entity apart, called I, that performs the action of eating, speaking, doing. This is because our language needs a subject, meaning something, that performs an action that is the verb. And so the verb cannot be the subject, are two words. But are there really two entities? When we say the wind blows, is there really an entity apart called the wind that performs the action of blowing? Or when it doesn't blow, where is the wind? When we say it rains, we know that there is no it that performs the action of raining. It's just a construction of grammar. There is no need to imagine an I apart from what's happening now as speaking, doing, deciding, or choosing. They are only experience appearing in the aware space that I am. All this appears in this space of awareness. But, so, in our aware presence, every experience appears. The experience of sensations, physical sensations that we call body, the experiences of the thoughts that we call mind, and the experience of hearing, seeing that we call the world. All this appears only in our aware presence. Otherwise, it wouldn't appear as an experience. This is why this I am consciousness, this feeling of being aware, is prior to any experience. It's prior to the body, it's prior to the mind, it's prior to the world. When we begin to say that I am this, I am the physical sensations that I call the body, and I am the thoughts that I call the mind, while I am not the perceptions that I call the world, the illusion of a separate ego is born. And we begin to think that the mind is in the body, and my aware presence, that is the space of awareness where everything is appearing, the mind, the body, and the world, is in the body, in the mind, inside there. Usually in our head, behind the eyes, there is a homunculus that is me, that isn't a body, has a body, and controls everything. But if my aware presence were only in the mind, in the body, nothing could appear of what is beyond, not even the body. Yesterday I was saying, if you look at your hand, is my awareness inside the hand, or rather, is it the hand that is fully immersed in awareness? So, by identifying our aware presence with the body-mind, only with the body-mind, we believe to be a limited and separate consciousness that we call ego, I, located in and identified with a single body-mind. While actually, that aware presence that we call I am includes the illusory separate ego and the world, includes the apparent duality between subject and object. Now, if you have followed me, we can explore a little bit closer into our experience of this strange thing that is the I am consciousness, or the being awareness. First of all, if I ask you, just now, are you really sure that you exist, that you are? I suppose that after a short pause, your answer will be yes, beyond any doubt. Now, of course, my question and your answer were words made of thoughts. But what happened in the gap between the question and the answer when you verified whether you are there or not, are here or not? What happened? During that pause, after the question, did you need to ponder on it? Did you need to reason, to use the thought in order to verify if you are? Or rather, your presence, your being was there before any thought could arise? And in that pause, something very interesting happens. That your being becomes self-evident by itself. It doesn't, as light doesn't need to be enlightened from outside. It shines by itself. So there was not a subject-object relationship, you that were looking at your being, but your being that was becoming self-evident in just a timeless moment. That is very important, because if your being is not an inert thing, a dead thing, but is evident, shining, it means not only that it is being, but it is also awareness. You not only exist, but you are aware, not aware of. Awareness itself, being itself. And in fact, if I ask you just now, are you sure that you are aware? The same thing. In the pause before you say, even before you think about it, your awareness is evident as a light. Now, do you have this being awareness? Or rather, are you being awareness? Can there be a you that doesn't exist? Of course, you are being awareness. You don't have. In order to have something, you must be and also be aware. So, you and being awareness are the same thing, the same identity. Now, have you ever experienced two me's at the same time? Two eyes together at the same time, two different eyes? Not even who suffers of multiple personalities has two personalities together, one at a time. So there is always only one I. Now, if there is only one I that is always the same, and if it is, not it has, it is, being and awareness, that means that being and awareness cannot be two separate things, but they are just two aspects of the same reality, like the two sides of a coin, like the head and the tail of a cat. They are not two separate things, they are the cat. This implies a subtle point. I'm sorry to be sometimes so, but it's important to explore this. If being and awareness are two aspects of the same reality, this means that actually you can't be aware of your being as an object. I guess that some of you could say, but I am aware of my being, of my existence. It's not really so. You can be aware of the thought, I exist. You can be aware of the thought, I exist, because thoughts are objects that appear as experiences to me, aware and present. My aware presence observes thoughts. And among those thoughts, there is the thought I exist, I am. But we know that thoughts, like words, are never what they mean. Otherwise, we could drink the word water and we could solve many problems in the world. So I cannot be aware of my being as an object, because this would imply that there is on one side awareness as a subject that is observing being as an object. But they are the two coins of the same, the two faces of the same coin. So they cannot be, and they don't need, actually, because as we have seen, awareness and being are self-shining, are self-evident, don't need to be seen from outside. Now, let us ask, our aware presence, our I am consciousness, that is this being and this awareness as I am consciousness, as the consciousness that I exist, as my feeling of being, has it any borderline where it ends? In your direct experience, can't you see any edge that marks its boundaries of your being aware? Can you see any edge? It's impossible, of course. It's impossible because any borderline, in order to be perceived, must always appear already in awareness, and so it cannot be of awareness. Can you succeed in stopping being for just 1 second? It is impossible, I think. If you are being an awareness, do you need any effort in order to be and be aware? Or it happens by itself, spontaneously, without any effort? You cannot even stop it. Is it a goal that we have to reach? No. And so all the spiritual traditions that say that you have to walk along a path in order to reach what you are, being awareness, as I told yesterday, are similar to a wave that tries to reach the water it is made of. Could any experience appear apart from our being awareness? We have already seen that it is impossible. Being awareness opens up the horizon of every experience. If an experience is outside being awareness, it is not an experience. We can't perceive it at all. Could any experience anyhow affect the purest simple fact that we exist and are aware. I mean, whether we feel, for example, pain or we feel pleasure, does it in any way alters the simple fact that we exist and we are aware? Is the function of being aware and of existing altered, affected somehow by the current experience? When you feel pleasure, do you exist? Are you aware? When you feel pain, do you exist? Are you aware? So this is very interesting, because being awareness is free from any experience. And this being and awareness has any distinctive form or quality of its own apart the fact of being and being aware? Do they have, has being awareness some feature, distinctive features or form, precise form, apart the fact that one is and is aware? No. And so we arrive at an interesting question. This being awareness, is being awareness personal or impersonal? Is personal or impersonal? What makes a person different from another one? Of course, the mind and the body. Your thoughts, your recurring patterns that we call personality, your physical aspect. All these things makes this body different from yours. So we are speaking of the changing this, of the I am this. But in how the pure simple fact of being and being aware, mine, can be different from yours, if they don't have any distinctive forms or features. Only being and being aware. My only being and being aware, how could it be different from yours? So we have seen that the simple fact of being and being aware, what we call our aware presence or our I am consciousness, is exactly the same in everyone, if it is in everyone. But we have seen also that it has no specific features, that it is boundless because it has no edges or borderlines that we can perceive in our experience. And so if there is no difference, and if there are no border, it is boundless, the result is that as far as our experience shows us, the I am is only one, is the same. There is no borderline, there is no specific form that can distinguish my aware presence from the one of the others. Especially because it is not the I am to be inside the body, but it is the body to be, are all bodies that appear in that presence. Like this I am consciousness is similar to the moon that reflects in thousands of pools of water. In every pool there is the image of the moon, the light of the moon, but the moon is only one. So we have seen that this being awareness in the form of I am consciousness is one, is boundless, is impersonal, is changeless, and prior to any experience. You cannot deepen it because it is bottomless. You cannot expand it because it is boundless. You cannot practice it because you are already doing it. You cannot reach it because it is already here. So it seems that we have found something of the inner core of our identity. Identity means what is always identical, so what doesn't change. But now comes another question. My feeling of being, my I am consciousness, no? Does it change or it is constant? In relationship with experiences, it is unchanging. We have seen it. But is it always present? What happens, for example, in a faint or every night in a deep sleep without dreams? Do we still know that we are? No. In deep sleep, we don't know that we are in terms of a mental thought or object. So, our I am consciousness is present in the waking state of consciousness, is present in the dreaming state of consciousness. But when there is the deep sleep, we no more know that we exist. The I am consciousness disappears, and we choose to know our existence as an object of mind. However, we still are, of course. Something remains. And so, the question is, if we notice that the I am consciousness comes and goes, even that, who or what notices that, the coming and going of our aware presence? What is that registers its presence and its absence in such a way that we know that it comes and goes? That is the unknowable source of presence, our aware presence of the I am. That is the unknowable source of being awareness. That source cannot be known because it's the knowing itself. It's the ultimate awareness, non-dual awareness, that registers even when our I am consciousness is not present. So, something remains in deep sleep because, usually people think that in deep sleep we are not aware. That is not so. Of course, what is sure is that in deep sleep there is no experience, nothing to be aware of. That is true. And this explains why we cannot have any memory of it. If there is nothing to remember, of course, we have no memory. But awareness was completely off, or there is some awareness. If you listen to my voice, you are hearing is working. You can hear. Okay. If you are closed in a room completely silent, you cannot hear any sound, but that means that your hearing is not there? Does it mean that you became deaf? No, of course. How can you check it? How can you sure that that your hearing is there? Because as soon as a new sound arises, you can hear it. And when we wake up, all appears again. If awareness were completely disappeared in a deep sleep, how can it come back when we wake up? But that awareness is not awareness of something, is the light of awareness. You know, the light, when the light travels through space, it is invisible. Otherwise, in night, the sky would be all white. The light, when it travels, is invisible. It becomes visible only when it meets a reflecting surface. And when it becomes visible, it assumes the size, the dimension, and the color of that specific surface. Otherwise, by itself, life is invisible. So awareness becomes what is appearing as its vibration, and so we see things. But when there is no activity at all, awareness is there as pure being awareness, unknowable, ready to know when some other vibration comes. And so we arrive to see these three things that we have met in our inquiry. At the level of our ordinary experience, we perceive our identity as a separate I, as a subject that is opposed to the world outside that is the object. This is the first idea that we have when we inquire into who am I, is that I am a separate I, exclusively identified with only one body and one mind, localized in a special point of space and time. But bringing deeper our investigation, our inquiry, we begin to understand that what we believed to be a small aware presence inside the body-mind is really an aware space where everything appears. In our direct experience, you see all this space where everything appears. It is a space of awareness, otherwise nothing could appear. And in this space appear not only the body and the mind appear, but also what we call the world. And so this I am consciousness, this feeling of being that we feel as the core of our identity, actually is not limited in the body, because the body, the mind, and the entire world appear in it. So it becomes one I am consciousness where all the worlds appear. Is what Nisargadatta calls the totality of the known. All what it can be known is in it. With further inspection, we have seen that even this universal I am consciousness is not constant, but comes and goes. And what registers its presence or absence is the unknowable source of being awareness that Nisargadatta calls the immensity of the unknown. He says, I see the world appearing in consciousness, I am, that is the totality of the known in the immensity of the unknown. We are that immensity. But, so let us see the separate ego, the I am consciousness where the totality of the known appears, and the immensity of the unknown. These are not three levels of reality. These are not three dimensions. This distinction that I made is only because our poor mind must use a very narrow instrument, that is the thought, and the thought must divide, differentiate. So what is important to understand is that they are only as a concession to our thought we can speak of these three things. In reality, there is only one mysterious, unbelievable, unknowable reality where all these things contemporarily unfold. Maybe we can be helped by the metaphor of the sea. Imagine that the waves of the sea are our experiences and our small separate egos. One wave is different from the other. Each wave is born and then dies, and it moves through space and time. The sea is the I am consciousness, what we all of us have in common, the feeling of being and the awareness where everything appears. And the sea doesn't go anywhere and is not separate from the waves. The waves cannot have an existence apart from the sea. They are not even things. They are just an activity of the sea, a moving of the sea. So you can see that there is no separation between the waves and the sea. There is no separation between the waves of our experiences, of our apparent individual egos, and the I am consciousness at the core of our identity. And then, beyond the sea, beyond the waves, there is water. Water is both the sea and the waves, and the water is what remains when all the concepts of sea and waves collapses into the unknown. And so you can see that at this point the idea of awakening becomes obsolete, because it is only another concept that vanishes when one realizes that this unknown source of being awareness, of our aware presence, is always awake. It has no need of an awakening. It is always awake because it is awakeness itself. And that is what we really are. This awakeness is not a faraway transcendent state that we have to reach. It is the very essence of our ordinary life, of this moment. This is why it is important not to lose our intimacy with the life. In spiritual, in the spiritual world, people very often look for a safe place from the touch of life, because the touch of life can be also very painful. And so people look for the witness stance or for some meditative peace that can keep us apart from life as simply observers. We say, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the world, I just am the observer, the detached observer of it from a safe place. This is a very precious experience in comparison with before. Before we were lost in our life as an individual ego that has to go to cross the ups and downs without realizing anything. So when we see that something in us is not those ups and downs, it is something more spacious where the ups and downs happen. So this is a very precious discovery that can save us a lot of suffering. So I'm not speaking against the position of the witness. It has been often misunderstood, even in the East, as liberation. But is radically dualist. Radically dualist. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am only the witness. But the question is that I am also the body, I am also the mind, I am also this apparent separate ego, but I am not only those. I am at the same time the witness where all of that, of those experiences appear, and I am the unknown source where even the witness appears and disappears. This is what we were before being born. This is what we will be after dying, and this is what we actually are just in this moment.